My name is Fire Sergeant Aaron Blake, and I've been with the Portland Fire Department for 11 years. Most of that time has been spent working the night shift, those quiet hours between midnight and dawn, when the city sleeps and we wait. Sometimes we wait for nothing. Sometimes we wait for something that changes everything you thought you knew about your job. What happened at the abandoned Riverside Industrial Depot on the night of March 14th, 2021, still makes me question whether I really understand the people we're supposed to protect this city from. Because that night, we didn't respond to a fire. We walked into a trap that someone had spent months preparing just for us. It was 2:14 in the morning when the call came through. I remember the exact time because I was in the kitchen of Station 7, making my third cup of coffee and watching the rain hammer against the windows. March in Portland means rain, the kind that doesn't stop, just varies between heavy and heavier. The station was quiet except for the sound of that rain and the low murmur of the television in the day room. Then the tones dropped. Engine 7, Ladder 7, Battalion 3, respond to a reported structure fire at 1847 Riverside Boulevard. Abandoned industrial building. Caller reports smoke visible from the street. I was already moving before the announcement finished, pulling on my turnout gear as the rest of my crew assembled in the apparatus bay. Firefighter Mia Larson, our newest member who'd been on the job for just 8 months, was fastening her coat with hands that moved a little too quickly. She was still nervous on night calls, still adjusting to the way darkness changes everything about our work. "Deep breaths, Larson," I told her as we climbed into the engine. "Abandoned building, probably squatters with a cooking fire. We'll check it out, ventilate if we need to, and be back here in an hour." She nodded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The truth is, abandoned buildings are some of the most dangerous calls we respond to. You never know what you're walking into. Structural damage, toxic materials, people who don't want to be found. Any of it could be waiting in the dark. The drive to Riverside Boulevard took us through empty streets, the rain creating halos around the streetlights. The industrial district was exactly what you'd expect at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Deserted warehouses and loading docks, chain-link fences topped with razor wire, and not a single person visible anywhere. Engine 7 to dispatch, we're approaching the scene. No visible smoke from the exterior at this time. Copy, Engine 7. Battalion 3 is approximately 5 minutes behind you. The Riverside Industrial Depot loomed ahead of us, a 3-story concrete structure that had been vacant for at least 5 years. The building had once housed a packaging company, but like so many places in this part of the city, it had been abandoned when the business moved overseas. Now it was just another piece of urban decay. Windows covered with plywood, graffiti covering every accessible surface. But someone had called 911 about smoke, and we couldn't see any from the street. I keyed my radio as we pulled up to the main entrance. Engine 7 on scene. No visible fire or smoke from the Alpha side. We're doing a 360 of the building before we make entry. The rain was coming down harder now, and the sound of it hitting my helmet was almost deafening as I stepped out of the engine. Larson and the rest of our crew, firefighters Marcus Johnson and David Palmer, assembled near the front of the building while I did a quick visual assessment. The main entrance was a large rolling metal door, the kind used for loading trucks. It was closed but not secured. I could see the padlock hanging open on the hasp. That immediately raised a flag in my mind. Abandoned buildings are usually locked tight, or they're completely open with the locks long since cut off by scavengers. This lock had been opened recently. "Larson, Johnson, come with me. We're going to do a walk around. Palmer, stay with the engine and be ready to pull a line if we need it." We moved along the side of the building, our flashlights cutting through the rain and darkness. The structure was bigger than it looked from the front, extending back at least 200 feet. Most of the windows on the ground floor were covered with plywood, but a few on the upper floors were broken out, creating dark openings that stared down at us, like empty eye sockets. "Sergeant Blake," Larson called out, her flashlight fixed on something near a service door on the side of the building. "You need to see this." I moved to where she was standing and followed the beam of her light. There, barely visible in the rain, was a thin line of smoke seeping out from under the door. Not the thick, dark smoke you'd expect from a fully developed fire, but a light, almost white smoke that suggested something chemical was burning. "Engine 7 to dispatch. We have confirmation of smoke from the Bravo side of the building. Requesting Battalion 3 to expedite." "Copy, Engine 7, Battalion 3, ETA 3 minutes. I tried the handle on the service door and found it unlocked. Another red flag. The smoke was getting thicker now, creating a visible haze in the beam of my flashlight. My instincts were telling me something was wrong. But we had a job to do. If there was a fire inside, we needed to locate it and determine if it was safe to make an interior attack. "Johnson, Tom, get Palmer to bring us a line. Larson, you're with me. We're going to do a quick primary search of the ground floor, but we're not going deep. If we find active fire, we back out and wait for the battalion chief." Johnson jogged back toward the engine while Larson and I prepared to make entry. I could see the nervousness in her eyes behind her face shield, and I couldn't blame her. Something about this call felt off from the beginning, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what was bothering me. The service door opened inward, and the smoke that had been seeping out immediately thickened. Not a heavy smoke that would drive us back, but enough to reduce visibility to about 15 feet. The smell was wrong, too. Not the acrid smell of burning wood or plastic, but something chemical, almost medicinal. "Engine 7 to dispatch. We're making entry on the Bravo side. We've got light smoke with an unusual odor, possibly chemical in nature." "Copy, Engine 7. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of concrete pillars and dark corridors. Our flashlights revealed empty loading areas, rusted equipment that had been left behind, and walls covered with years of graffiti. The smoke was heavier near the ceiling, creating a layer that obscured the upper portions of the space. But there was no fire. At least, none that I could see. "This doesn't make sense," Larson said, her voice slightly muffled by her mask. "We've got smoke, but no fire? Where's it coming from?" "Keep your eyes open and stay close to me. Something isn't right about this." We moved deeper into the building, following the smoke to its source. The warehouse seemed to extend forever, one section leading to another. All of it lit only by our flashlights and the occasional shaft of ambient light from a broken window high above. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in an abandoned building. Metal sliding against metal, somewhere ahead of us in the darkness. "Did you hear that?" Larson whispered. Before I could answer, there was a loud clang behind us. I spun around to see a heavy metal door, one I hadn't even noticed we'd passed through, slam shut. The sound echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. "Engine 7 to dispatch. We've got a door closure behind us. Unknown cause. We're going to check it and then continue our search." I tried the door. It didn't budge. The handle turned, but the door itself was solid, as if something was holding it from the other side. I put my shoulder into it, and Larson helped me push. But it wouldn't move. "Sergeant Blake," Larson's voice had taken on an edge of panic. "We need to get out of here. This is wrong." She was right, but before I could respond, I heard another sound. More metal sliding, and then several loud clangs in succession, coming from different directions throughout the building. "Engine 7 to dispatch. We need additional units at this location immediately. We have multiple door closures and we're unable to exit the way we came in." This may be a hostile situation. Copy, Engine 7. All units respond. Firefighters trapped in structure at 1847 Riverside Boulevard. Repeat. Firefighters trapped. The smoke was getting thicker, and I realized with a sickening certainty that it wasn't from a fire at all. Someone was pumping it into the building, using the ventilation system or some other method. The chemical smell was stronger now, burning my throat even through my mask. Larson, we need to find another exit. Stay close and don't touch anything that looks unusual. We moved through the smoke-filled corridors, trying to maintain our sense of direction in the maze of the warehouse. Every door we tried was locked or barred from the outside. Every potential exit had been sealed. Someone had turned this building into a trap, and we'd walked right into it. My radio crackled with traffic from the incoming units. Battalion 3 to Engine 7, what's your exact location inside the structure? I tried to respond, but my radio was filled with static. Whatever was causing the smoke was also interfering with our communications. I could hear voices, garbled and distant, but I couldn't make out what they were saying, and I knew they couldn't hear me clearly either. Sergeant Blake, look at this. Larson was shining her light on the wall next to one of the locked doors. Someone had spray-painted a message in red letters, fresh enough that the paint hadn't fully dried. You burn my house, I burn yours. My blood went cold. I knew exactly what this was about. 3 weeks ago, our department had responded to a suspicious fire at a residential building on the east side. The building had been used as a drug lab, and when we'd arrived, the fire was already fully involved. We'd made an aggressive interior attack, but the structure had been too compromised. It had collapsed, destroying everything inside. The owner of that building had been arrested for manufacturing methamphetamine, and he'd made threats against the fire department during his arrest. But I'd never imagined he'd actually follow through, or that he'd do it like this. He's locked us in here, I said, more to myself than to Larson. This is revenge for the Cloverdale Street fire. The meth lab fire? But that guy is in jail, isn't he? He was, but maybe he made bail. Or maybe he had someone on the outside willing to do this for him. The smoke was getting denser, and I could feel my air supply starting to run low. We'd been inside for almost 20 minutes, and we needed to find a way out soon, or we'd be in serious trouble. That's when I saw it. At the end of a long corridor, there was a door with a green emergency exit sign above it. The sign was lit, which meant the building still had some electrical power. More importantly, it meant there might be a way out. There! Emergency exit, let's move! We ran toward the door, our boots echoing on the concrete floor. But as we got closer, I realized something was wrong. The door was metal, like all the others, but this one had something attached to it. My flashlight revealed what looked like a crude but effective booby trap. Tripwires connected to several canisters that were mounted above the door frame. Stop! Don't touch that door! Larson skidded to a halt, just inches from the threshold. What is it? Some kind of trigger mechanism. If we'd opened that door, those canisters would have released. Given the chemical smell in here, I'd guess it's more of whatever he's been pumping through the ventilation system, but in concentrated form. So every exit is either locked or booby-trapped. That's exactly what I'm thinking. The situation was clear now. We were dealing with someone who had studied our procedures, knew how we'd respond to a fire call, and had spent considerable time and effort turning this warehouse into a death trap, specifically designed for firefighters. My radio crackled again, and this time I could make out Chief Donovan's voice through the static. Engine 7, your location? Multiple units, on scene, attempting entry. I I tried to respond, but got nothing but static in return. The interference was intentional, another layer of the trap designed to prevent us from coordinating with the units outside. "Sergeant Blake, my air alarm is chirping. I'm getting low." Larson's voice was steady, but I could hear the fear underneath. We all train for situations like this, but training and reality are two very different things. When your air supply is running out in a smoke-filled building with no visible exit, that training can only take you so far. Stay calm. We're going to find a way out. Look for any openings, vents, windows, anything we can use. We continued moving through the building, checking every possible exit and finding each one sealed or rigged with some kind of trap. The smoke was at waist level now, and the chemical smell was making my eyes water even behind my mask. Then I noticed something that gave me hope. One of the windows, high up on the wall, maybe 15 feet above the floor, wasn't covered with plywood. It was broken out, just a frame with jagged glass edges, but it was open to the outside. There. If we can reach that window, we can break out. The problem was getting up to it. There was no ladder, no scaffolding, nothing we could climb. But there was a stack of old wooden pallets near the wall, and if we could pile them high enough, we might be able to reach the window. "Help me stack these pallets. It's our only shot." We worked quickly, dragging pallets through the smoke and stacking them against the wall. My air alarm started chirping, a steady beep that told me I had maybe 5 minutes of breathable air left. Larson's alarm had been going for several minutes already. The pallet stack was shaky, but it was high enough. I climbed up first, testing each level to make sure it would hold my weight. When I reached the top, I was just able to grab the window frame. "Larson, I'm going through. Once I'm out, I'll help pull you up." I pulled myself through the window, feeling the glass tear at my turnout coat as I squeezed through the opening. The rain hit my face as I emerged on the outside of the building, and I've never been more grateful for cold water in my life. "Engine 7 to all units, we found an exit point on the Bravo Charlie corner, second-story window. We're coming out." The static was gone now that I was outside, and I could hear the response immediately. "Copy, Engine 7. Ground ladders responding to your location." I could see firefighters running toward my position, and I turned back to help Larson through the window. She was struggling to climb the unstable pile of pallets, her movements getting slower as her air supply ran out. "Come on, Larson, you're almost there." She reached the top of the stack, and I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the window. Just as she started to climb through, there was a loud crack from below. The pallets were collapsing. I held on tight, taking her full weight as the stack fell away beneath her. Other firefighters reached us with a ground ladder, and within seconds, we were both being helped down to safety. Chief Donovan met us at the bottom of the ladder, his face a mixture of relief and anger. "Blake, what the hell happened in there?" I pulled off my mask and took a deep breath of cold, clean air before answering. "Chief, that building is rigged with traps. Someone locked us in deliberately and was pumping chemical smoke through the ventilation. Every exit we tried was either sealed or booby-trapped. This wasn't an accidental fire. This was attempted murder." The Portland Police Department's arson investigation unit arrived within 30 minutes of our escape. Detective Sarah Martinez, who I'd worked with on previous suspicious fire cases, met me at the command post that had been set up across from the building. "Aaron, walk me through exactly what happened in there." I was still catching my breath, still tasting the chemical residue in my throat, but the details needed to be documented while they were fresh. "Detective, this wasn't a fire. It was a deliberate trap designed to kill firefighters. Someone called in a fake smoke report, waited for us to respond, then locked us inside while pumping chemical agents through the ventilation system." Martinez was taking notes, her pen moving rapidly across the page. You said there was a message painted on one of the walls? You burn my house, I burn yours. I think this is connected to the Cloverdale Street fire 3 weeks ago, the meth lab fire where the building collapsed during our interior attack. Robert Finch, Martinez said immediately. The building owner. He made explicit threats against your department when we arrested him. Said you deliberately destroyed his property. Is he still in custody? Martinez pulled out her phone and made a call. I watched her expression change as she listened to the response. When, exactly? She paused. I see. Thank you. She ended the call and turned to me with concern in her eyes. Aaron, Robert Finch made bail 4 days ago, posted a $50,000 bond, and walked out with a court date scheduled for next month. 4 days. More than enough time to prepare the trap we'd just escaped from. But something didn't add up. The sophistication of the warehouse setup, the knowledge of fire department procedures, the technical capability to interfere with our radio communications. This went beyond what a small-time drug manufacturer should be able to accomplish. Detective, I think we need to look deeper into Finch's background. Whoever set up that warehouse knew exactly how we'd respond to a structure fire. They understood our entry procedures, our communication protocols, even how to manipulate our equipment. You're thinking he had help? I'm thinking he might have capabilities we don't know about. Chief Donovan joined us, his face grim. The hazmat team just finished their preliminary assessment. The chemical being pumped into that building was a mixture of industrial solvents and tear gas components. High concentration. If you and Larson had been exposed much longer, it would have been lethal. The realization of how close we'd come to dying hit me hard. 20 minutes. We'd been inside for 20 minutes, and if we hadn't found that window when we did, neither of us would have made it out. Chief, we need a complete search of that building once it's safe to enter. If this is Finch's operation, there might be evidence that tells us what else he's planning. Donovan nodded. Hazmat is setting up ventilation equipment now. Should be safe for entry in about 2 hours. But Aaron, you and Larson are done for the night. Get checked out by the medics, then go home. That's an order. I wanted to argue, but there was no point. The medics cleared us after determining we hadn't suffered serious respiratory damage, though they recommended follow-up examinations. As I was preparing to leave, Martinez approached with her phone in hand. Aaron, patrol went to Finch's last known address. You need to see what they found. She handed me her phone. The screen showed photographs of an apartment's interior. The walls were covered with surveillance photos, fire stations, firefighters during routine activities, apparatus responding to calls. In the center of one wall was a detailed map of Portland with 12 locations, marked with red X's. How many targets? I asked, though I could count them myself. 12. We're cross-referencing now, but they appear to be fire stations and staging locations your department uses during major incidents. 12 targets. The warehouse hadn't been an isolated act of revenge. It was the opening move in a systematic attack on the Portland Fire Department. Detective, you need to issue a department-wide alert immediately. Martinez was already on her phone, coordinating with command staff. Within minutes, every station in Portland was placed on high alert with police units assigned for security. But I couldn't shake a nagging feeling. The sophistication evident in Finch's apartment, the technical knowledge required for the warehouse trap, the careful planning necessary to execute attacks on multiple stations, this was beyond a single person's capability, especially someone with Finch's limited background. Detective Martinez, what if the Cloverdale Street fire disrupted something bigger than we realized? What if that building wasn't just a meth lab? What are you thinking? I'm thinking maybe we stumbled into an operation that involved more people and more resources than a simple drug manufacturing setup. It was nearly 5 a.m. when the hazmat team cleared the warehouse for entry. Despite orders to go home, I'd stayed at the scene. When Martinez assembled the investigation team, I made sure I was part of it. The interior looked different now that the chemical smoke had been ventilated. What had seemed like random corridors in the darkness revealed deliberate design. The ground floor had been modified to channel anyone entering toward the center, where the smoke generation equipment had been installed. "This whole building is one big trap," Martinez said, examining the metal doors that had sealed us inside. "Look at these hydraulic systems. Motion sensor triggered, designed to close automatically once someone passes through." I studied the mechanisms. Professional-grade equipment, not hardware store purchases. Someone with access to specialized systems and installation knowledge had spent considerable time preparing this building, but what we found in a second-floor office changed everything. The office had served as a command center. Walls covered with photographs, fire department personnel files somehow obtained, detailed schedules of shift rotations and response patterns. A large whiteboard displayed a timeline stretching back 6 months, each entry corresponding to fires our department had responded to. Green check marks, red X's, question marks beside each incident. "They've been tracking your department's responses for half a year," Martinez said, photographing everything. I studied the timeline more carefully. A pattern emerged. Green check marks marked fires where we'd made aggressive interior attacks and saved structures. Red X's indicated buildings lost because fires were too advanced or structures unsafe for interior operations. "They've been studying our tactics," I said, "learning when we'll push hard to save a building and when we'll back off. But why?" Before I could answer, an investigator called from another room. "Detective Martinez, you need to see this." We followed him to what had been a storage room. Now it contained equipment that made my stomach turn, dozens of containers filled with accelerants, electronic timing devices, remote detonators, detailed blueprints of buildings throughout Portland. But the list taped to the wall was what made everything click into place. Names and addresses of fire department personnel. Not just firefighters, but their families. Home addresses, children's schools, spouses, workplaces, every piece of information needed to target firefighters in their personal lives. "Oh God," Martinez breathed. "This isn't just about fire stations. They're planning to go after families." I found my name on the list, my address, my daughter Emma's school. The violation of seeing that information, knowing someone had been watching my family, was overwhelming. "We need protective details at these addresses immediately," I said, calling my wife Claire. "Erin?" Her voice was thick with sleep. "Claire, I need you to listen carefully. Take Emma and go to your sister's house right now. Don't pack. Don't wait. Just go. Police units are on their way, but I need you moving." "Erin, you're scaring me. What's happening?" "I'll explain everything later. Please, just trust me and go now." She agreed, and I ended the call. Martinez was already coordinating protective details for all the families on the list. "Erin, look at these blueprints," she said. They're not just building plans, they're structural analysis documents showing weak points, load-bearing walls, optimal placement for incendiary devices. Every blueprint was marked with a date. The earliest showed today's date, March 15th, at 6 a.m., less than an hour from now. "Detective, the first attack is scheduled for 50 minutes from now." She grabbed the blueprint. "Station 12 on the west side. We need immediate evacuation and bomb squad response." She was on the radio instantly, but I was looking at the other blueprints. Dates scattered across the next 2 weeks. This wasn't a single attack, but a campaign designed to systematically destroy stations and target firefighters over an extended period. 12 blueprints, 12 dates, I said. This is their complete operation. But we've found their plans. We can prevent all the attacks now. I wanted to believe it was that simple, but something bothered me. Detective, doesn't it seem strange they left all this evidence here? The apartment was cleared out, but this command center has everything we'd need to stop their operation? Martinez paused. You think it's intentional? Like they wanted us to find this? If I was planning something like this and knew my safe house might be discovered, I'd leave false information to send law enforcement in the wrong direction. So these 12 targets might not be real? I'm saying we need to be very careful about trusting information left here for us to find. It was 5:45 a.m. when we finished the initial search. The bomb squad had been dispatched to Station 12. Protective details were being assigned to firefighters' families, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were missing the bigger picture. Martinez and I stood in the parking lot as dawn broke over Portland. Rain finally letting up. Behind us, the warehouse loomed like a monument to someone's hatred. Aaron, what are your instincts telling you? I thought carefully before answering. My instincts say we're dealing with someone who has resources and training beyond what a small-time criminal should possess. The warehouse trap was sophisticated, but it was also loud. Lots of moving parts, lots of evidence left behind. If they really wanted maximum damage to the fire department, there are easier ways. So what are they really trying to accomplish? I think the warehouse was a test. They wanted to see how we'd respond to a trap, how long it would take us to escape, what our procedures are when we're cut off from communication. Everything tonight was data collection. Martinez's expression darkened. You're saying tonight wasn't the real attack, it was reconnaissance. Exactly. And if I'm right, the real attack is still coming. Her radio crackled with an urgent transmission. All units, we have fire reported at Station 12, multiple explosions. Units responding. We looked at each other in horror. The bomb squad hadn't arrived in time. The attack hadn't been scheduled for 6 a.m. That was misdirection. The real timing had been calculated to occur while we were focused on the warehouse, while the station crew was distracted by evacuation orders. They played us, Martinez said, running toward her car. The warehouse was a diversion while they hit their real target. I ran with her, calling Chief Donovan. Chief, what's the status at Station 12? Everyone got out, Aaron. The evacuation order came through minutes before the explosion, but the building is destroyed, and there are reports of additional unexploded devices. Chief, there are going to be more attacks. We need every off-duty firefighter called in and every station on maximum alert. Already doing it, but Aaron, if they're this far ahead of us, I don't know how we stop them. The drive to Station 12 took 10 minutes. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. The station was fully involved, flames shooting from every window, secondary explosions as stored equipment and vehicle fuel tanks ignited. But what struck me was how the fire was burning. Not a normal structure fire spreading from a point of origin, but coordinated burning with multiple sections involved simultaneously. Sophisticated placement of incendiary devices designed to ensure complete destruction. They didn't just want to destroy the building, I told Martinez. They wanted to make sure it burned completely. No evidence, no reconstruction possible. Aaron, look at the apparatus bay. Those fire engines are melting. She was right. The bay where the station's engines and ladder truck were housed was burning at temperatures far exceeding a normal structure fire. Accelerants specifically designed to destroy vehicles beyond salvage. This is about more than revenge, I said, understanding clicking into place. It's about crippling our response capability. They're not just attacking firefighters, they're attacking the department's operational ability. Chief Donovan appeared beside me. Aaron, we just got word from dispatch. 3 more explosions at different locations across the city. Industrial area warehouses, multiple working fires requiring all available units. They're stretching our resources, I said. Hit one station to take it out of service, then start fires at multiple locations to tie up remaining units. By the time we realize what's happening, they can hit more targets while we're spread too thin. Martinez was on her phone coordinating with police units. Aaron, we're getting reports of suspicious vehicles near 4 other fire stations. This is happening now, all across Portland. The scale of the attack was staggering. Not one person with a grudge, but a coordinated assault on Portland's fire department, planned and executed with military precision. And we'd walked into their trap at the warehouse, exactly as intended. Chief, we need to pull back all units and consolidate at defensible locations. If they're hitting multiple stations simultaneously, we can't protect everything. We need strategic decisions about what we can save. Donovan was already issuing orders to pull back units and establish staging areas, but I could see the anguish on his face. Every station we abandoned was a neighborhood without fire protection, potentially for days or weeks. As the sun rose over Portland that March morning, I watched Station 12 burn and listened to reports of fires and explosions across the city. The warehouse trap had been just the beginning, a test to see if we'd take the bait. While we'd been congratulating ourselves on escaping and finding the command center, the real attack had been unfolding exactly as planned. Robert Finch, if he was even still involved, had accomplished something unprecedented. He'd brought a major city's fire department to its knees in a single morning. But standing there watching Station 12 burn, I realized something else. The attack was too sophisticated, too well coordinated, too perfectly timed to be simple revenge for a meth lab fire. There was something else happening here, something bigger than we understood, and whoever was really behind this wasn't finished. By 8 a.m., Portland was a city under siege. 5 fire stations hit with incendiary devices, dozens of fires burning across the industrial district. Our department operating at less than 60% capacity. The morning news was calling it the worst attack on emergency services in the city's history. I was at the temporary command center set up at police headquarters when Detective Martinez pulled me aside with news that changed everything. Aaron, we found Robert Finch. Where? Dead in his apartment. Been dead at least 3 days, probably since shortly after he made bail. Single gunshot to the head, execution style. The news hit like a physical blow. If Finch had been dead for 3 days, he couldn't have trapped Larson and me in the warehouse last night. Someone else had set that trap. Someone who wanted us believing it was Finch's revenge operation. Who are we really dealing with, Detective? We're trying to figure that out, but we found something at Finch's apartment that changes everything. A bank statement showing a $50,000 deposit 3 weeks ago, the day after the Cloverdale Street fire. Someone paid him? Or paid someone using his identity? The account was accessed remotely multiple times after Finch was already dead. Whoever killed him has been using his accounts to fund the operation while making it look like Finch was behind it. I thought back to the Cloverdale Street fire, trying to remember every detail. Straightforward response, or so we'd thought. Working fire in a residential building. Aggressive interior attack. Structural collapse forcing us to withdraw. Total loss. Later discovery of the drug lab. Detective, what if the Cloverdale Street fire wasn't about the meth lab? What if there was something else in that building, something we destroyed without knowing? Martinez made a call. I'm having our team re-examine everything from that fire scene. If there was something else there, we need to know. My phone rang. Claire. Aaron, there's a man outside our house, been sitting in a car across the street for the past hour just watching. The police unit that was protecting us left 20 minutes ago. Said they got called to higher priority. Claire, take Emma and go to your sister's house right now. Don't wait. Don't pack. Just go. I'm sending units to your location immediately. Fear in her voice as she agreed. I turned to Martinez, but she was already on the radio dispatching units. Aaron, all the protective details at firefighters' homes received simultaneous calls pulling them away to false emergencies. This was coordinated to leave families vulnerable. The realization hit with devastating clarity. They're not after fire stations anymore. They're going after our families. The attacks this morning were to make sure on-duty firefighters would be too busy to protect their homes. Before Martinez could respond, her phone rang. She listened, face going pale. We're on our way. What happened? The team going through Cloverdale Street evidence found something, a hidden room in the basement, not in any building plans. What was in that room explains everything. 20 minutes later, we stood in an evidence processing facility looking at items recovered from the hidden basement room. What I saw made me understand exactly why someone was willing to destroy Portland's fire department. The room had contained servers, high-end computer equipment partially destroyed in the fire but still recoverable. Data forensics had been working all morning extracting information from damaged drives. This wasn't a meth lab, Martinez explained. It was a data center. Someone was using that basement to store and distribute stolen financial information, credit card numbers, bank account details, identity theft data for thousands of people. How much money? Based on preliminary analysis, probably tens of millions in stolen assets. When your department hit that building with water and the structure collapsed, you destroyed a major criminal operation. I stared at the damaged servers, understanding clicking into place. So this whole thing, the warehouse trap, the attacks on stations, going after our families, it's all revenge for destroying their criminal enterprise? Not just revenge, Aaron. It's about sending a message. Whoever ran that operation wants to make sure no one ever interferes with their business again. They're willing to burn down an entire city's fire department to prove they can't be touched. Do we know who's behind it? Martinez pulled up a file on her tablet. Forensics found communications on those servers, encrypted messages between someone using the handle Ash and various associates. The messages reference someone they call the Chief. We think that's who's running the operation. The Chief? Not much to go on. No, but we traced some financial transactions. The money trail leads to an account registered to a corporation called Ember Security Solutions. When we looked into that company, we found something disturbing. She turned the tablet toward me. Corporate website for a private security firm. Services listed: executive protection, security consulting, risk management. But what caught my attention was the staff photo. There, standing in the back row among a dozen other security professionals, was a face I recognized. Someone I'd worked with years ago. Marcus Kane, I said, voice barely above a whisper. He was with the fire department for 5 years before leaving for private security. We worked together at Station 9. Martinez leaned forward. You know this person? I thought I did. Marcus was a good firefighter, skilled, dedicated, but he always talked about how much money he could make in the private sector. I didn't think he'd end up running a criminal enterprise. According to our research, Ember Security Solutions is legitimate on the surface, but we think it's a front for illegal operations, including the data theft center you destroyed. Kane has the knowledge to plan sophisticated attacks on fire stations and the motivation to hurt the department he sees as holding him back from real money. My phone rang again. Claire. I answered, expecting to hear they'd made it to her sister's house. Instead, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in 5 years. Hello, Aaron. I've been waiting for you to figure it out. Marcus, what have you done? What you forced me to do. That building on Cloverdale Street was generating more money in a month than I made in 5 years with the fire department. You destroyed it, so I'm destroying everything you care about. Marcus, we were responding to a fire. We didn't know what was in that building. You didn't care. That's always been the fire department's problem. You show up, you smash things, you flood buildings with thousands of gallons of water, and you never think about consequences for people's lives and property. Where's my wife, Marcus? Where's Emma? They're safe. For now. Whether they stay that way depends on you, Aaron. I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything because of someone else's actions. Martinez was frantically trying to trace the call, but I knew Marcus would have taken precautions. He'd learned from his fire department time how to avoid detection. What do you want, Marcus? I want you to watch Portland burn. I've planted incendiary devices in 47 locations across the city. Every major intersection, every bridge, every critical piece of infrastructure, they're all going to ignite simultaneously in exactly 1 hour. And your department, what's left of it, won't be able to stop even a fraction of the fires. You'll kill hundreds of people. That's not my concern anymore. You taught me that actions have consequences, Aaron. Now Portland gets to learn that lesson. The call ended. I looked at Martinez, seeing my own horror reflected in her expression. We need to evacuate downtown, she said. If he's really planted devices at every major intersection, we don't have time to evacuate. We have 1 hour to find those devices and disable them. And we need to find my family. Chief Donovan had been listening. Aaron, we can pull every available unit and start searching. But if they're as sophisticated as the warehouse devices, we might not be able to disarm them even if we find them. Then we need to find Marcus. If we can get to him, maybe we can stop this. Martinez was coordinating with her team. We're tracking his phone signal, but it's bouncing off multiple towers. He could be anywhere. I thought about everything I knew about Marcus from our time working together. His habits, favorite locations, places he'd go when he wanted to be alone. Then I remembered something he'd said during late-night conversations at the station. I know where he is, the old water tower on Mount Tabor. Marcus used to go there to think when he was having a bad day. Said it was the one place in Portland where he could see the whole city. We raced toward Mount Tabor, knowing we had less than an hour to stop the largest terrorist attack in Portland's history. When we reached the water tower, I could see a figure standing on the observation platform, looking out over the city. Marcus Kane hadn't changed much in 5 years. Same confident stance, same intense focus. But something in his eyes when he turned to face me was different. Something cold and dead that hadn't been there before. I knew you'd figure it out, Aaron. You always were the smart one. Marcus, you don't have to do this. Whatever happened, whatever you lost, this isn't the answer. This is exactly the answer. The fire department thinks it can do whatever it wants, destroy whatever property it wants, all in the name of public safety. Well, today, the public gets to see what happens when there's no fire department to protect them. You're talking about killing innocent people. I'm talking about consequences, Aaron. Something the fire department never has to face. Martinez and SWAT officers had moved into position around the tower, but Marcus had anticipated that. He held up a phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Everyone stays where they are, or I trigger all the devices right now instead of waiting for the timer. I stepped closer, hands visible. Marcus, I know you're angry, but this isn't who you are. You saved lives when you were a firefighter. You were one of the best. And what did it get me? A pat on the back and barely enough money to survive? While criminals like the ones running that data center made millions. I finally found a way to make real money, and your department destroyed it. So you destroyed Robert Finch instead? An innocent man who had nothing to do with this? Finch was convenient, a fall guy with a motive. I needed someone to take the blame while I rebuilt my operations somewhere else. Where's my family, Marcus? He smiled. Coldest thing I'd ever seen. They're in the basement of the warehouse where you were trapped last night. Locked in, just like you were, with enough chemical smoke to kill them in about 30 minutes. That's how long you have to make a choice, Aaron. What choice? You can try to stop the devices across the city, save hundreds of lives, and let your family die. Or you can go save your family and let Portland burn. Either way, you lose something you can't get back, just like I did. I looked at Martinez, seeing the impossible calculation in her eyes. Save the city or save my family? The choice every firefighter dreads, the one where there's no right answer. Marcus, please, don't make me choose. The timer started 5 minutes ago, Aaron. You'd better decide quickly. And then he jumped. I rushed to the railing, watching Marcus Kane fall to his death on the rocks below. In his hand, the phone that controlled the incendiary devices across Portland, a phone that was now shattered and useless. Martinez was already on the radio, coordinating bomb squads to the locations Marcus had mentioned, but I was running for my car, driving toward the warehouse where my family was trapped. The next 25 minutes were the longest of my life. When I reached the warehouse and broke through the door Marcus had locked, I found Claire and Emma unconscious but alive. The chemical smoke had been real, but Marcus had miscalculated. The ventilation system we'd damaged the night before had allowed enough fresh air in to keep them breathing. By the time they were loaded into ambulances, Martinez called with news. Aaron, we found 16 devices, all disabled. Marcus was bluffing about 47 locations. He probably didn't have the resources to build that many. What about the other families? All safe. Marcus was focused on you. You were the one who led the team at Cloverdale Street. This was always about revenge against you specifically. The following investigation revealed the full scope of Marcus Kane's operation. Ember Security Solutions had been a front for various illegal activities, with the Cloverdale Street data center being just one component. When we'd destroyed it, we'd cost his organization millions in lost revenue and years of careful planning. The attacks on Portland's fire department had been about more than revenge. They'd been about sending a message to law enforcement and emergency services across the country: interfere with organized crime, and there will be consequences. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. He'd let his anger and desire for revenge cloud his judgment. Instead of disappearing and rebuilding his operation elsewhere, he'd stayed to destroy the fire department that had unknowingly ruined his criminal enterprise. And that mistake had cost him everything. 3 weeks later, I stood with Mia Larson at the dedication ceremony for the rebuilt Station 12. The city had come together to support the fire department. Donations had poured in from across the country. The attacks had ultimately made us stronger, more united, more determined to serve and protect our community. But I still thought about Marcus Kane's final words, the choice he'd forced me to make, the impossible decision between duty and family that defines every firefighter's life. I never found out if I would have made the right choice. Part of me is grateful I didn't have to, but another part knows that someday, maybe on another call, maybe in another crisis, I might face that choice again. And next time, there might not be any way out. The warehouse trap had taught me something I'd never fully understood before. The people we protect the city from aren't always criminals in the traditional sense. Sometimes they're people like Marcus Kane, people who started with good intentions and skills, people who made different choices that led them down dark paths. And sometimes the scariest thing we face isn't the fire itself. It's the realization that the person trying to kill us used to be someone we trusted, someone we worked beside, someone we thought we knew, As I looked out at the crowd gathered for the dedication ceremony, at the faces of my fellow firefighters and the community members who'd supported us through the crisis, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not just relief that we'd survived, but gratitude for the reminder of why we do this job. We don't do it for the money. We don't do it for the recognition. We do it because when everything goes wrong, when buildings are burning and people are trapped and there's no one else to call, someone has to be willing to walk into the fire. Even when that fire was deliberately set. Even when it's a trap. Even when the person who set it used to be one of us. That's what it means to be a firefighter. And after everything that happened at the Riverside Industrial Depot, after escaping Marcus Kane's trap and stopping his attack on our city, I understood that truth more clearly than ever before. The warehouse trap was over. Marcus Kane was dead. Portland's fire department was rebuilding. But the lessons we learned from that March night in 2021 would stay with us forever. And I'd never look at an abandoned building the same way again.